And it wasn't,
What?
I think it was a coach. I don't think it was, I don't know. I was like, and somebody said, what? And she was like, yeah, I guess there was a lot of water retention, like 4 gallons. I don't, I went, geez.
I don't know that I saw that, but all right. Well, here we are, team. It is January 6th, our first meeting of the year. So good to see you guys. There's Meg. Tell us about your excited client.
Yeah, well, she just told me she's down 7 pounds in her first week. She answered the phone and she's like, "You're talking to a client who's down 7 pounds in her first week," and she was just thrilled, taking back control and feeling better and more like herself. So just exciting.
How'd that make you feel?
I mean, I feel a little frazzled just because I knew I was late to this call. So I haven't thought about that yet, but good. And just the reminder that like it only takes a week, you know? Like it works and it just takes a week to flip the switch, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So good. Well, I just had my chocolate Ascend shake, which is my favorite. What is your favorite Ascend? Have you had a chance to try yet?
You can't beat that brownie.
The brownie.
So good. So good.
The waffles.
You liking that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say, I did not like the everything bagel bar at first. It was very strong. So I just stuck it in the toaster oven and for, just a little bit and then put some of the whipped cream cheese on it. It was very good that way.
Okay. Look at you giving it that. Remember that? I used to say that to clients. Now that you just reminded me, like I used to always say, try it twice because sometimes your first reaction. So that's awesome.
Where did you put it to start with, Beth? You put it in the microwave or
No,
in the
toaster oven, just like a piece of, like a bagel.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I had it first thing in the morning and it was
Too
got
strong.
very strong flavors for me first thing in the morning. I'd eat a brownie first thing in the morning. But it was mid-afternoon and it was delicious that way. So I agree.
Just don't do it for long because it burns quick, I learned.
True.
Good. Good. All right. Well, glad to see you guys trying it. I think like, as with anything to embrace, to move forward, to offer it, we've got to be experiencing it ourselves. So, so good, good, good. Well, we kind of like to leave this time for us to more of an open forum. Tonight, excited for team time tonight. Meg's going to be going over the use of AI in our business. So talking more about the tools and using that tool. But this, I think, is always a good setting to just kind of get a pulse on where we are. What do we think the next best steps are? And, anything that might be impacting our progress. So, one of the questions I have, and Meg, I know you know the specific questions, but have you guys had an opportunity to listen to the most recent Bob Heilig podcast, the Optivist podcast with Kristen Glass? And if so, I would love to just open the mics here to your feedback, any paradigm shifts or anything that might have happened as you experienced that.
I'm about halfway through it. And having worked with Bob, and of course I love Kristen, it was just a great reminder about what this is.
About what?
About what this is. This is not,
What this is.
I've never felt like when I hear, oh, well, it's sales. It's never been to me. It's always been about who can you serve? Who can you help? And, it all goes back to that. And I'm where I'm at now is when she was talking about the difference between courage and confidence.
Courage and
Confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the way she phrased that. I'm glad you brought that up, Gina. She phrased it something like many times we live in a fantasy, like we think we're going to arrive at some point, that it's going to make sense to us, that we're going to feel confident. And it, you know, I love the way she used the word that it's a fantasy to think that we're going to not feel that. Yeah. Good.
That was what stood out to me too. One of the things that stood out to me was that fantasizing versus envisioning. You know, are you envisioning yourself, or are you just fantasizing about it and it's like oh, it's out there, it's this dream, rather than envisioning yourself. That's exactly what we have clients do when we're asking them, you know, about their why. We don't say, what's your why necessarily. We you know, we give them some, if you get to this number, what's life going to look like for you? We're asking them to envision themselves. And when they can't answer that, they're not ready. They're not ready. They don't usually buy in that it's too expensive or it's whatever. And bottom line, it's not a priority. You know, they haven't thought it through enough. They're not committed enough to really make any changes. They just, oh yeah, I'd like to lose some weight. You know, it's not really what they want.
That's so true, Kelly. And it's that belief. It's the belief. And I think back when we talked about the marketing, kind of like when you do a post or whatever, identify the problem, and then how do you come alongside somebody to solve it? But then the third step was, what's the outcome? Like, so how do you help that person envision what is possible for them? And I think even for us as our own business owners, if we're not envisioning as something as possible for us, which will lead to maybe one of the things that was a big takeaway that I had from that call, was if we don't see it, whatever you're thinking about, that's going to be your reality. So they haven't caught that belief.
Another phrase that stood out to me when they were talking was, if I'm not getting it confused, because I listened to several, was, it's not about becoming the better form of you, but becoming the next you. So it's not just improving on, it's the next, what's the next step with the next person, you know, the next, what you are going to be. So that just, rather than, you know, tweaking what you've already got, but what's the next thing, which is completely different, really, when you think about it.
I have
And
to
if you
agree
think
with.
about,
Go
I
ahead.
want to hear Lucy for sure. You go
No,
ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, one of the things they asked was, how have you transformed? Like since your first day on program or your first day as a coach. And I love how you just tied that together, Kelly, because when I think back, it's all been an evolution. And not that I was bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it is how you've evolved, how you awakened to the next version.
Yeah, I have to agree and add to that. That was one of the things that I wrote down, and I was sharing with Meg and Carolyn earlier today, that I was at the gym and I was listening to it again, and I had so many post ideas because I listened to them, and then I listened to Kristen Voss podcast right after that. And it's amazing to me that when you put yourself in the right mindset, how the creativity kind of flows. And that was one of the things that I actually put as a post idea, is like, what's the next version of you? You know, and it actually even goes to the exercise that you gave us last week on the team time when you're asking about our 2024 accomplishments, you know, and now we're going into 2025. So it's even that is an evolution, because I had forgotten about all the good things. It's like what your mind focuses on is what's going to be glaring in front of you. And I tend to focus on what didn't go right. I tend to focus on all the injuries I had in 2024 and the things I wasn't able to do that I wanted to do. But I still did some good stuff, you know, despite all of those things. So it was a really good. I'm gonna listen to it again, because both times I listened to it, I wasn't anywhere where I can like really write down things. And if you're on the treadmill, you can take notes, but you can't really write things down. So I will be listening again.
I think the other part was like when he asked, are the best days ahead or behind us? I mean, how many of us have had that fear of like, what's happening? Have we seen the best days?
Yeah.
But like with Habit Finder, we're always reminding clients, you've got to be in creation. And I think they both talked about that, like everything is going to come at you. It's what you decide to do, and are you going to stay in creation and be proactive? Or are you going to let it keep hitting you and knock you down,
Mhm.
I love that, Julie. And one of the things I've been thinking about too was, not just are the best days of Optavia ahead of us, which I believe, but turning to believe like it's ahead of me too, that like I can be a part of it too, that it's not too late. And I keep on thinking about these coaches that have come on that used to be Take Shape for Life, and then they let their business go, and then Optavia came and they joined, and that kind of came back. And I have often thought when they came back, like, wow, like what would have happened if they stayed through? Like what would be true, And so I feel like we're in that evolution that happened back then, but it's happening now. I don't know if this is making sense the way it makes sense in my mind, but it makes me feel expectant instead of feel afraid, which is really good for me.
Something else that stood out, I'm sorry, I'm talking to you, something else that stood out to me was about Optavia keeps improving the company as of themselves, but they keep improving things for us. Okay. Other companies that are in the network marketing space are not doing that. Not only is their compensation package not as good as ours, but they are losing money. So they've now, I don't know if y'all heard about Beachbody making everybody affiliates. So they now no longer have the compensation that they had before. All these people that were with them for years and years it's just down to zero. So, and they did that to, because the company isn't concerned about those people. Whereas Optavia partners with us, and they're concerned about making things better for us so that we can build our businesses. Every time they give us some kind of incentive, something to do, it's to help us help more people, but also help us help ourselves to actually build a business and be partners with them even better, rather than the other way around. And so I feel very fortunate to be aligned there with Optavia as opposed to anything else out there, because there's a fear of that happening because they're not really that invested in their, they're just looking at their bottom line and that's all they care about. Whereas Optavia is paying attention. They know where their treasure is and who's building it, here for them.
So true. So true. And I think I shared that, when they were looking at the marketing experts or looking at us in compared to, there's a lot of noise out there with the weight loss industry and a lot of different things. The defining factor that makes us different is the live coach that we have. And all the emphasis with the marketing is on that partnership with individuals. And again, does everybody see the need for it? No, but this is also our platform for awakening and educating in so many different arenas. So yeah, I believe that Optavia, I feel very supported by Optavia. We have to be careful that we don't, I feel like they've been evolving, right? Like we evolved. It's been almost 2 years now that we introduced Active out. They were expanding us that way. Then we evolved into starting to help with GLP-1. There really hasn't been that much change. It's been our response to it, right? And I want to talk a little bit about that. I think you referenced the podcast, Lucy, from Kristen Boss. I'm about halfway through it, but she talks about adversity and resilience, and that we can have a growth response or we can have a collapse response. And signs of a collapse response are, it's our own internal wiring with how we deal with adversity, how we deal with hard things. And it's something that's learned, right? You can change it. Like we learned it when we were children, how to respond. But as adults, we can learn it. But it was amazing when they talked about some of the signs that you need to upgrade your internal operating system is when you feel like you need to quit, that you need a break, that you feel overwhelmed, that none of this is bad stuff, but when that's kind of our response system to it. And it's the way that we're handling that adversity. She also talked about and I'll try to share this with you. Nancy Strauss like illegally recorded it and she sent it to me. I can send it to you if you're interested. I'll see if I can forward it, but it's a powerful thing. But she just talked about, you know, that it's our lens that we're looking through. And I was I always try to be very honest with you. I was very convicted by that Kristen Glass, Bob, when they said, are the best days behind you or ahead of you? Because I wasn't even consciously aware of it, but I was really starting to believe that it was behind me. And I need to go find something else. And I need to, you know, I need to just hang on every month. How bad is it going to be? And when I heard that, I like, for me, and everybody's different, it was like, but what if the opposite is true? I just had to do that flip. What if the opposite is true? And because whatever I'm believing is what's happening to my business. And by doing that flip and then actually looking at my business and, hey, this could happen by this date if I put my energy here. Like if we're not moving towards something, like you said, that creation, Julie, who disappeared, but there she is. If we're not, right, we're letting it happen to us.
Yeah, so that made me think, and Meg, you said something that made my head go there. If we were during the time when you know, business was kind of falling in our laps, for lack of a better term, but that's kind of what was happening. So during COVID, right? When that was happening, if we sat there and said, gee, I would really like to go back to the last year, why would we do that? And yet we'll do it in reverse. We'll sit here now and say, I'd really like to go back to the last year. And I'm like, but would we really? I mean, if you think about that, we don't get the growth, personal growth. We don't get the challenge. I mean, honestly, that was a nice time, but it wasn't challenging. It wasn't making me look at me and what can I do differently? It was like, oh, I'll just post another before after. Somebody will call me. And sure enough, somebody did, you know, that kind of a thing. I just think so much of it is just like you were saying, Dee, it's our perspective and what are we looking at and why? Why are we looking at that? Do we want easy? Really? I mean, some may, but.
We think we do.
Mhm.
We think we do. But if you looked back on your life and the evolvement of your life and who and what you've become, it's because of how you've handled resilience and hard times. And, you know, how many times have we tried to protect our children from, right? We see the freight train coming and we're like, get out of the way. But until they fall, right, and experience it, that's how they grow and are shaped, etc. Yeah, I think that's really good. And the thing is that life is going to happen no matter what, right? And some of us may feel battered from 2024. Kristen Boss talked about a trauma response for failure, right? And this is, and she said trauma is a big word, but I looked at this and I thought, so many people I'm working with, so many coaches right now, including myself, I can put in these categories: a trauma response from failure, never setting another goal. Right. I've had people say, I don't want to set another goal because I don't want that stress. I don't want whatever. And whereas Kristen Glass talks about pressure is good, right? Pressure means you're leading towards something better on the other side. We got to choose it healthy, right? We can't wig out. Some of us probably were unhealthy, myself included, but there is balance. Yeah. Pressure is a privilege. That was so good. Avoiding goals entirely. Right. Right. Withdrawing socially. So withdrawing from meetings, withdrawing from showing up, right? That's happened. Quits or leaves the business entirely. We've seen that. Big one, trauma response, stops dreaming. Hides behind other things, busy, overwhelmed. Other life things. And I love this one. I don't love it, but I think we've all done it. I hate it, actually, I should say. Dismisses their desires for more, and the AKA settling. Good enough. I'm okay. Do you see yourself anywhere in that?
Way too many. Way too many. I was sharing with Meg earlier, I just made a decision, over the weekend. It's like, okay, I got to get myself back together. Like, I just have to get focused. And I hadn't set an alarm for myself in months. I'm like, okay, let me set an alarm, get my butt up, have my quiet time, get to the gym. And while I was on the treadmills, when all these thoughts started, coming in my head, and it's like, okay, I didn't know what to do with it all. And then I said, I did my darn map for the first time in months. And it was hard because I had been one of those, didn't want to set any goals. I wanted to just let it come to me, let me just love on people. Let me just serve people, which is good and which is what I'm doing, which is what I pray to continue to do. But I also have a business and I have to work my business. And, when they were saying on Bob Pilot with Kristen Glasses, so many of us have become hobbyists, you know, and I have become a hobbyist. And a hobbyist is not going to get me free. A hobbyist is not going to give my husband options. You know, I need to sit down and put my butt in gear and do some work, but also know that I'm still not in total control. There's a higher power. So it's just, but what I can control is I can control my schedule. I can control making my calls. I can control creating posts. I can control starting conversations. I can control getting out of my house and meeting new people, and let the chips fall where they may, but I have to be in action to let something be, to make something happen. So if that even makes sense.
Dang,
So
mic drop. Yeah. I'm glad we have that recorded. We all need that in our ear. But I mean, that's part of it, is I think that we reach a point that we can start to feel that we're not in control, right? And as soon as you said, I set my alarm, and then I did this, and then I went to the gym, and then the ideas flowed, it's because there was some level of control. Now, agree, right? Is everything in our power? No. But I think I used the quote last week, God can't move a parked car, right? If we're not doing our part. It's like I remember hearing people as like in high school, people are like, well, we haven't planned for college for our kids, but God will provide, Well, you're going to take out some loans and some debt. And, like if you don't have a plan, like, yeah you'll be, but so we have a role in it. Yeah.
Well, even if the role is as simple as asking God, what do you want me to do? Or whatever you believe in. So, but just, yeah.
Yeah. So as we enter the new year, right? Like, what would you think would be like the top 3 things that would bring the most value right now for you to do for your business? For yourself? Let's just brain dump some ideas.
Dee, it's weird because it's not really anything new when you think about it. It's just making a commitment to do the work. Because we honestly, it's because you said we have had it easy. Now we need to work.
Mhm.
And if we're afraid of working, our business is going to stay where it is. But we have to work.
Yeah. I think they said that on one of the calls, or maybe like Kristen had said it, like this is a season of working right now. Like we are harvesting, we are planting seeds, we are, and as Meg said, like there was a huge shift, like when Optavia came, what transition from Take Shape for Life, and because it had kind of run its course, it was just a weight loss program focused primarily on the body, right? And when we evolved it into a total experience, that was a new wave and new people came. So there's huge opportunity. And that's what I think Kristen Boss said, that with this business, it's the basics, right? Get out and talk to people, sell your service, your products, whatever it is that you do, share about the business opportunity, right? That's the business. And so why is it that like Coach A can be going to town on it and Coach B is stuck needing the next piece of information, the next Instagram course, the next boot camp, you know, and it's just the way that we're processing. She talked about the lens we're looking through, and also the, you know, how we deal with the hard stuff along the way is really what makes the difference. And when you look at like a Kristen Glass, Dan Valentine, again, they're very wired very differently, but they're viewing this as opportunity, and they're moving forward, figuring out what it's going to look like, right? Taking chances, doing things different, versus what Vicky said, Vicky Meister, like, or potentially sitting back and hoping it goes back to the way it used to be. Right? It's how we show up in it.
I also think too, like, different people have different styles of things. For me, I know the best thing for me to do is to block time on my calendar to work on my business, to like, it's in there, nothing else gets scheduled during that time. And sometimes I even put specifically what I want to do in there. Because if I don't do that, and that's, I honestly, I sent Dee a text and I said, I'm just sitting here procrastinating. I don't think I can procrastinate for another 2.5 hours before the ED call. And with that, the FedEx truck pulled up with the new iPad. Well, that took care of my procrastinating, because then I had to transfer everything. But, you know, it's kind of, but that's kind of what it is. I don't have any time blocked this week for the business. And yet sitting here talking today, it's like, that's what works for me. Now that may not work for Gina. She may need something different, you know, or, you know, like, I know Julie has to work around when she's home alone, you know, to do things. So doing that, it's just kind of, Shauna currently may have to work on whether or not they have power. But I think, you know, it's just, I think we need to figure out what works for us, what gets us zeroed in, and then do it. Figure it out. Okay. But do it.
You know, something that she was saying, Kristen was saying about imposter syndrome too, tagging off of what Vicky's saying there, is she was like, we're not selling something and we're not bugging people, we're serving them. And it's just in the way that we look at it, it's like, are we seeing this as something that we're serving people, we're helping people with this thing, we have a gift to share with them. And yes, they're paying something for it, but let me tell you, they're not paying near what they could be paying. So, you know, it's a deal. And so, but we're serving them when we think of it like that. And that gets me too, you know, I think, oh, I don't want to bug this person, or I don't want, you know, they didn't respond, they must not be wanting. That's not, they're just, and it slips their mind, or their text messages were full and they didn't think about responding or whatever. So it doesn't hurt to reach out again. I don't do like, I know there's some people that just send it all the time, but I don't do that. But looking at it like I'm serving them is just, that changes that around. You know, I have something that of value to them that they really, I know they need. And, you know, if I'm not acting as if I have something that's really of high value, then they're not going to think it's of high value.
Mm-hmm.
A great reminder of the lens that we're looking through. I want to hear from you, Debbie, from the lens that we're looking through, right? I don't want to put this post out. I don't want people to think I'm blah, 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 right? Now here's the narrative that we've attached to it. Think about what I shared about the trauma response, and I can put the image of this in here. How many of our clients think failure, right? Trauma response to failure. So a client or a potential client, right? Like their tendencies may be to withdraw, to stop setting goals, to whatever. And then our role is to remind them of what they said was important. Is it painful when some people don't choose it? Yes, but more people are going to if we stand up. And I think we're in a huge position to be really having voices out in the world in the health market, because we've done this for years. This is who we've been for years. People will pay, right, Kelly? Like you're talking about money. Look what people are spending on the drugs and stuff. Like people will pay for something that's important to them. So own the value of what it is that we have to offer. And with people that are using the drugs, whatever. I mean, if you look on Instagram, everybody's talking about 3 ways to get protein in. 5, you know, if I was doing a weight loss journey, here's what I would do. Be out there with them, because if we're not doing it, somebody else is doing it. They're getting their information from somewhere. So huge platform. Debbie.
Yeah, so when you were saying what are the 3 things you need to do, I started writing stuff down, and I wrote like organize my office, schedule my year. So I'm thinking about, you know, like Dan Valentine had a year or 2 ago that he was doing a thing. He kept saying do the work, and he had a hat with DTW, like, and I'm thinking what I need to do is do the work, because I think a lot of times I'm busy with everything, like I'm juggling the whole like be a mom and be a coach thing. But I spend a whole lot of time hoping or wishing or really caring a lot, but those don't do anything. Like you got to sit down and make a schedule, and you got to read the book, and you got to do, like, I have to do the thing. So for me, just do the work. So yeah, that's my.
And sometimes I mean, if I tell you how many times, and Meg probably can agree, like I just need to organize my office. As soon as I get this office organized, right? That is just a stall technique. It's a procrastination technique. It is something, and we're probably not even aware of it, but we may be telling ourselves that we need to do that in order, but it's actually covering a different fear or negative or narrative that we have. And I'm all for set the schedule, but then set the schedule and do something. Right.
Right. Yeah. Because for me, I can say I need to organize my office because I'm sitting here looking at, there's a pile of paper that's been there for a really, really, really long time. I can say it all day long, but until I actually start doing it, there's nothing, you know, like, yeah, you need to clean your office. Do it. Don't just say you need to.
Right.
Yeah.
Bingo. We saw your snowman come in there, Shauna.
He's been out there for hours.
Oh.
Hours and hours.
How much did you get?
I think we ended up with about 9 inches. Yesterday we had 6, and it snowed all through the night, but we had ice storm come in to pack it all down, and so it's a mess today. It's unusual for Kentucky. You know, when we lived in Utah, it was no big deal. Could be 2-3 feet of snow on the ground, and it was normal, but here it's unusual.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we still have power.
But the generator's right,
because that's hard to function without it. So.
Yeah. We haven't had to use the generator. So
yeah, but it's ready.
It's actually back in the house, but it's ready.
Okay.
We realized it was too cold leaving it outside, it wouldn't start. So
Good. I hope you don't need it.
me too.
I wanted to share something real quick about a client that just returned. I got to talk with her this morning. It was what reminded me of it. She was working with me like 2 years ago, and I think we did 2 calls. You know, we did that health assessment call and we did the kickoff call. And I think maybe we did 1 more after that. And then she was done with the calls. She was still ordering, but I never did hear back from her. And then of course she canceled her stuff when she was done. And but she came back and she said, this time, Kelly, she said, I lost 40 pounds, then I've gained it back and then some. And I know now that I should have done what you were telling me before to invest in that mindset change, invest in that habit formation, because that's what got me, is I didn't have those habits set. I didn't have that mindset. And so then it all came back and I had all these problems again. And I just, you know, and we hear that a lot. I mean, I know we hear that a lot from people that come back, but it is something that I'm sure a lot of us coaches tell our clients, you know, we don't invest in this, you know, and I've got a couple people right now that I don't have time for a call. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. They're not going to succeed very well. I mean, they might be disciplined and can do the nutritional part of it, but they're not doing the other part, and they're not going to do that by themselves, because if they could, they wouldn't have come to us. So it's just, we're needed. There's just, people realize, oh my goodness, you're right. That's, you know, and, you know, probably we only talked like 3 times. So I only said it maybe once, and she remembers that 2 years later, that she needs to come back because of what I said that one time. It stuck. She recalled that when she needed to do it again. So it's like, people do listen to what we say, maybe not when we think they should, but.
It's a great reminder. Great reminder. I just had somebody come back. And I was going to say right now, guys, huge opportunity with the client support bonus being expanded for this month only with the reactivated clients, and they only need to have an order of 150. I looked and we had like 13 people already have in our org already have one of those already. And a lot of them I can tell are reactivated, but I just had my third one come back. So people are out there. So I hope you're staying in touch with your inactives, right? And if you haven't been staying in touch, I've been doing at least once a week in the month of December. I've been sending emails to my inactives. And I think it's paying off. You know, I'm using MailChimp, but I think it's paying off. I'm seeing a much higher open rate. I'm seeing people click to the website. But the one that just came back today, it's probably been 9 years since we worked together. We were putting it together, and she got all choked up because she had put all that weight back on and whatever. And she's like, I'm 73 years old. I can't do this anymore. I want this to be the last time. And I said, well, you know what? That's who we are. We talk about after the after. That's what, you know, and let's do it differently this time. So I think, I know I have done it in the past, but if you've ever been in your head, like, I don't really want these clients back, all they do is this and that, like, you probably won't get a good response to clients coming back because of the energy you have behind it. But if we can really meet people where they are, like, I think of so many times, like Dan Bell could have just slammed the door on me going, well, I've told you 10 times, Dee, how to do this, and you choose not to. You know, like, at least somebody welcomes me with open arms, right? And so I think if we can just be the open arms people right now with individuals, and then try to take those opportunities to guide them along, because people don't know what they don't know. And a lot of times we've got to hit our own walls and, you know, frustration before we're really ready to hear. And it might be somebody's time now. But I was writing down, and I would love to hear your feedback on it. I like, for me, what I was thinking my top 3 things was one, focusing on my own health. Right. And, and like working with the Ascend products, like being really super serious and diligent about this. Because kind of what you said, Lucy, I think if anytime I feel out of control with my own health, it's reflected in my business, right? So if I can control this, then I'm going to work on what I can control. Being super visible with that open heart, with a goal to educate and also welcome. So that's new people, inactive. And I had written down, contact all inactive clients. I just think it's a huge opportunity. I think people are figuring this out and they want more. You know, they know this works. They've been kicking the can down and dealing with their own disappointments in life. But we're here for them. And I was just having a conversation with another coach earlier. We were talking about the coaching opportunity, you know, that is a vital part of this business, and in terms of growth. And they expanded the impact multiplier, but also thinking of opportunities. How could you share this business? Because I think a lot of us have kind of, based on our own experiences, gotten a little gun shy about it. But who are we holding back from this, that it could be life-changing for them?
Mhm. Mhm.
Other comments, feedback? Maybe from somebody we haven't heard from yet? Meg, you got anything? You want to tell us what you're excited about for tonight too?
Yeah. I'm excited about AI. I've only scratched the surface of using AI, but I'm so excited about what it can do for us. You know, you could go in there into ChatGPT and say, write a Facebook I had it write a Facebook post for me. And it wrote the one for Dee's client support plus bonus. So go check that out. I was like, oh, I like that. So I'm excited about that. But I was just sitting here thinking, and Lucy said, you know, it's not really different, but even going back to, okay, what are the three things? I mean, it never changes, right? It's always the same. So the big phrase I keep thinking about is back to the basics. Like when I was feeling great, what were the things? What did my schedule look like? What were the rocks in my calendar? What actions was I taking then? And getting back to those basics.
Yeah. I love that. And probably moving towards something. I know when, just for some personal reasons, December was a really hard month for me. And I realized I was closing out the world. I was very inward focused, didn't feel any accomplishment, et cetera. So I think just such a reminder of, you know, and we're going to go through seasons in life. I'm not discounting that, but growth, like being in that creation mode is just so important. And like you said, Meg, like I think we're most fulfilled when we're in pursuit of something. All right. Well, looks like I think our time is about up. Great to see you guys. I'm glad we are back connected. And so we'll see you guys tonight on Team Time. Invite your coaches too. All right. See ya.